myself. I didn't want you around. Those pretty faces always made you stand out in a crowd. Someone picked you from the bunch. One glance was all it took. Now it's much too late for me to take a second look. Ah, baby, give me one more chance. Won't you please let me back in your heart? Oh, darling, I was blind to let you go. But now since I see you in his arms, I want you back. When I treated you bad and wrong, my dear. And since you went away, don't you know I sit around with my head hanging down, and I wonder who's loving you. Listen, baby, ain't no mountain high, ain't no valley low, ain't no river wide enough, baby. If you need me, call me, no matter where you are, no matter how far. Don't worry, baby, just call my name, I'll be there in a hurry. You don't have to worry, 'cause baby, there ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you. Remember the day I set you free? I told you you could always count on me, darling. And from that day on, I made a vow, I'll be there when you want me, some way, somehow. 'Cause baby, there ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you. Oh yeah, baby. Like a fool, I went and stayed too long. Now I'm wondering if your love's still strong. Ooh, baby, here I am, signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours. Then that time I went and said goodbye. Now I'm back and not ashamed to cry. Ooh, baby, here I am, signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours. Ah, here I am, baby, signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours, baby. Here I am, baby. You got my future in your hands, baby. I've done a lot of foolish things that I didn't really mean. Ah, yeah, yeah.
Hey guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, we're going to be learning 4 classic Motown songs. But first off, I gotta give big props to the band for a job well done. So big shout out to Evan on ukulele, the boys for backing him up, Sage and Steven on drums and bass, and of course, last but not least, Ashley for an amazing vocal. Now, let's talk a little bit about these 4 songs because they're not all equal. The first one is I Want You Back by the Jackson 5, and that's the one we're going to be learning in this video, which is the part 1 lesson. Now this first song is a lot more challenging to play than the 3 that follow. So if you're not quite at the advanced level yet, I'd actually recommend jumping into the part 2 lesson where we're going to learn the other 3 songs because it's like a night and day difference. They're so much easier to play. So I can't stress that enough. I just want to throw that out right off the bat. So if you want to learn any of the other three songs, which is Who's Lovin' You, another Jackson 5, Ain't No Mountain High Enough, amazing song, and Signed, Sealed, Delivered, Stevie Wonder, those three are going to be taught in the Part 2 lesson. You can watch the Part 2 lesson by clicking this link, or go onto the site, rockclass101.com, and doing a search for Motown medley. Now, also on that page will be the tabs that you can print off to follow along with, plus the really cool interactive on-screen tab player. So this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a great asset in learning this song that much easier. And last but not least, we'll have backing tracks that you can download too. So we're going to have 100% speed, 75% speed, and 50% speed. So once you learn these tunes, you can download the jam tracks and rock out with the band at home. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to talking about this first tune. So what makes it so challenging? Well, it's not really challenging from a left-hand perspective. What are left hands doing? It's more so challenging from the rhythmic perspective. You see, this first song is based out of 16th note rhythms. And the thing about it, though, is that a lot of them are syncopated. So that means that we're going to be accenting and playing notes that don't fall directly on that downbeat. Anytime we're playing on the ends of the beats, that becomes really, really tricky to do because it's just not as natural. So to make it easier for us, we're going to be counting out rhythms throughout this entire thing. We're even going to be clapping along. If you need to brush up on any kind of basics of rhythms and counting, I'm going to put an introductory lesson that I did, which is a great resource, in the description box below. But guys, honestly, the best way to really comprehend this type of stuff is to learn to read standard notation, because learning to read standard notation is like taking the training wheels off your bicycle. It strips away tablature and it forces you to really understand how rhythm and timing connect. So if you really, really want to get a good grasp on this stuff, jump into our reading course. You can click this link to check it out. I'll put it in the description box below as well. All right, so the last thing I want to say about this tune is that Evan's performance, he did it with a high G ukulele. I'm going to be teaching you how to play this song on low G ukulele. But here's the thing. This is one of those rare songs that works for either high G or low G with basically very, very minimal amount of changes. The reason why is because like 95% of this arrangement literally plays off these three strings. And if you own both ukuleles, then you know that those three strings are identical between the two. So there's only a couple times we'll be playing on string 4 where we'll be changing things up, but you can follow along with this lesson using either high G or low G. If you are a premium member, make sure you print off the tabs that are called Andrew's version, because that's the one that I'm going to be using to teach you guys. All right, so let's jump into this first tune. Now, I'm going to play the first couple bars because we have a cool little funk strum rhythm pattern that we're going to start off with. Sounds like this. All right, so let's jump into learning how to do that. But before we do, let's hit pause and let's break it down into sections, because as you can probably tell off the bat, that's a lot to take in one bite. So here's what we're going to do. Let's learn the chords that we're playing out of just for the first measure. And the first measure sounds like this. Okay, so let's break down just that part. Now there's 3 chords that we're playing out of, and there's only 2 shapes. So here's the first one. It is a D major chord. And these aren't actually full-on 3-finger chords. We're playing them as double stops, which means 2 notes. So we're only needing 2 fingers. So the first one, we're going to take our ring finger, put it on 10 on string 2, and place your middle finger on 9 on string 1. Okay, as we go into our next chord, which is an A major, what I want you to do is lift the middle finger up, slide the ring down a half step to 9, and place your index on 7 on string 1. Okay, so memorize that shape, and here's the easy change. Going into our third chord, which is B minor, we just move our shape down a whole step. So we're on 7 and 5, ring and index finger. So hit pause on this video, take a moment just to get comfortable between those 3 chords. You can always put it into a time frame where you bounce between them, kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Like half notes, just something to get the muscle memory down, okay? Now, here's what we want to look at first with this first measure. If we put up the rhythm hits right here, we can see that the hits are in red. So you can see off the bat you have 1 E, that's for beat 1. Beat 2 you have and Beat 3 you have E, and beat 4 you have 4E, right? So it's right off the bat you can see a lot of syncopation is happening, especially in that third beat. Now, here's the thing, you have to memorize this. This is going to make it so much easier to learn. Look at just the hits for beat 1. That's going to be the D chord. So any of or all of those hits for beat 1, that's just going to be the D chord. Look at beat 2. Enda, that's going to be the A chord. And if you guessed it, beat 3 and beat 4, that's going to be the B minor chord. Okay? So anytime you have hits for 1, that's D. Hits for 2, that's A. Hits for 3 and 4, that's B minor. So memorize that. It's going to make it so much easier to play. All right, so here's what we're going to do first off. We're actually going to count and clap that rhythm. So let's see if we can try it together. So I'll count us in. We have 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and Awesome. Now if that was challenging for you, then just hit pause and practice it for a while. Put a metronome on, tap your foot along, just get comfortable with those hits. Now what we want to do is we want to put the chords to those hits. So remember, D is for beat 1, A is for beat 2, and B minor is for beat 3 and 4. So with those chords intact, let's actually try to play just that. So let's try it together. 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and Nice. So tricky stuff, but if you've got that down, then we can take our next step, which is to add that percussive muted strumming to it, which really makes it sound kind of like a funk rhythm to me. So here's what happens. If we keep looking at the rhythm hits up there, everything that's white, that was a non-hit. Well, it's actually going to turn into a hit. It's going to turn into either a down or an up muted strum. So how do we know when to go down? How do we know when to strum up? Well, let's get rid of that and let's put up just straight up 16th note down and up with those little arrows. Now, if you're looking at this one, you can tell right off the bat that we're literally just alternating down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up throughout the entire thing. So, for example, if I just play throughout all of it, I have 1 E and 2 E and down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So very simple, right? So what you need to pull from that is that you strum down anytime it's a number. You also strum down anytime it's an end. And you strum up anytime it's an E or anytime it's an A. So that's what you have to memorize. And that rule of thumb of tying the downs to the 1 and the ends and tying the ups to the E's and the A's, that applies not only for these first couple measures, but throughout this arrangement, anytime we have some strumming, because there's going to be a little bit of strumming mixed in here and there, you follow that same pattern, okay? So memorize that. That is your golden rule of thumb, so to speak. All right, so with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at just beat 1, which remember is the D chord. So it sounds like this. Okay, so I know that I have down, up, try that again. I know that I have down, up, okay? But remember, our hits were 1 E, so we want to keep that chord held down. Then we're going to lift up, and we're going to do a muted down strum before we push down again and do a chord hit going up. Okay? So you have down, up, or it might help to call it like this. Down, up, mute, up. Okay, that's a good trick to call it. Now here comes the big kicker. How do we mute this thing? Well, here's what I want you guys to do. You have two options. Option one, first off, make the D chord. Option one is to take the index finger and to lightly touch string 4 and 3. So remember how you do just a straight up basic muted strum by lightly touching the strings? That same amount of pressure will be applied to string 4 and 3 to mute everything. Oops, if I make the chord right. Everything that you don't want to hear. So here's the thing, if you're playing, you have a strap, and you're standing up, and you're jumping around, you're entertaining people, you're not always going to be able to target your strum to hit string 1 and 2 only. It's natural if you're moving around and entertaining that you may be hitting more strings, okay? To fix any unwanted sounds, because if we don't mute, you can hear we have some awful string ringing out on top of it that clashes really bad. To minimize any of that happening, we just have to mute the strings we don't want to hear in case we hit them. Okay? So take that index finger, just lightly touch 4 and 3, and you can see I'm over the 8th fret. Okay? So if I hit more than I intend to, I still only hear string 2 and 1. Now here's option 2. I'm going to use my index finger to touch string 3, and I'm going to reach around with my thumb, hugging the neck, to touch string 4. So same thing happens. I'm still muting, but if I strum all 4, I'm only hearing string 2 and 1. Okay? So either one works, you just have to see which feels more comfortable for your left hand, but I would really recommend working on muting, because if you don't, you're going to have to really target the bottom 2 strings with your right hand strum, and if you miss, like I said, you get some unwanted sounds. Okay, so with that in mind, let's try this first beat again. We have 1, E, and A. Okay? So when you're doing the mute, you just want to lift pressure up from that chord just to cut the notes. So 1, E, and A. Alright, let's give that a shot. 4, E, and A. 1, E, and A. Nice. Going on to beat number 2, we're going to start with 2 muted strums, and that's going to buy us time to move our hand down, because remember, beat 2 is the A chord. So we start with 2 muted strums, and then we're going to play 2 strums with the chord. Okay, so we have 2, E, and A. Alright, so here's what the first and second beats sound like. Alright, let's see if we can try that together. 3, E, and A, 4, E, and A, 1, E, and A, 2, E, and A. Nice. Now, going into beat 3, we're going to move down to B minor, and we're going to start with a mute, then we're going to come up with the strum, then we're going to do 2 more mutes. Okay, so we have mute, up, mute, mute. All right, let's try that. 2, E, and A, mute, up, mute, mute. Nice. To finish up, stay on the B minor. For beat 4, we start with 2 strums, down, up, followed by 2 mutes. Mute, mute. So for beat 3 and 4, remember, B minor, you just want to memorize it. So you have, starting on beat 3, mute, up, mute, mute, down, up, mute, mute. Okay, let's try that. 2, E, and A, mute, up, mute, mute, down, up, mute, mute. Nice. So putting it all together starts to make more context because it kind of completes the phrase. Alright, let's give that one a shot. 3, E, and A, 4, E, and A. Nice. So challenging stuff because there's a lot happening for this first measure. So again, if you need extra help, you can just hit pause and practice that one nice and slow. Remember, slow and steady wins the race. Here's the beauty. If we look at measure number 2, you can see rhythmically it's almost identical. The only difference is you are stopping on beat 4. So we're literally doing one less strum. So that's going to make it just that much easier. But there's actually a second reason that it's easier. This second measure stays on one chord the entire time. So let's look at this chord. It's a G5. Take your index, put it on 3rd fret of string 2. Ring is 5 on string 1. Now, all we have to do is apply the same right hand strum pattern with the same hits while we vamp on one chord. And the only difference is we stop on beat 4. So 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4. Okay, let's try that together. 3 E and 4 E and Nice. So let's see if we can backtrack. Let's try 1 to 2. 3 E and 4 E and Nice. So really cool sounding stuff. And you want to start slow like that before you try to play super duper fast. But if you can get it down fast, eventually you will. It'll sound like this. So pretty cool stuff once you start to build some speed. Now let's jump into the next couple measures. And this kind of completes the first half of the intro. So the intro is 8 bars, but you want to look at it as 2 parts. Bars 1 through 4 is the first part, and then 5 through 8 is the second part. But here's what the next couple measures sound like, and then we'll break it down and learn it. And you're going to notice that our playing style goes back to more traditional chord melody type of playing. But here's what it sounds like. So really cool, and it's very catchy. If we simplify it to a single note, that may be the easiest way to first approach it. So just like the last couple measures where we broke it down piece by piece, let's see if we can do that again for this one. First thing is just to memorize that. It's so catchy. That's that first measure, or measure 3. So let's just tackle that. So get that stuck in your head. Remember, if you can sing it, you can play it. But if we break it down into a single note melody, first off, we're only playing on 2nd and 5th fret on string 2 and string 1. So keep that in mind. What I want you to do is I want you just to take this first and the ring finger, and I want you to hammer on 2 to 5 on string 2. That's the only time we play on string 2. The rest of the melody notes, they fall either on 2nd or 5th fret on string 1. Okay, so we have hammer, and then I want you to play 2, 5 as a single note plucked on string 1. Okay, so if we look at this rhythm right here, we have 1 E and So 16th note's very simple to kick us off. Now, look at that it's going to get tied into beat 2. So our next hit is going to be the E of beat 2, which is going to be the 5th fret again. So keep that ring finger planted and just play 5. After you do that, I want you to come down with a little slap, and I want you to play 5 again. So if we look at just beat 2 by itself, we start on E, come down with a slap on end, and then for we play it again. All right. If we connect the dots, so to speak, we play beat 1 into 2. Sounds like this. All right. If we count the rhythm, let's you and I try together. We have 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and Nice. Now if we look at the second half, we're going to again be tying the into beat 3. So we're starting on the E of beat 3, which again is a 5. Then we're going to come down with a slap on end. And this time around for we're going to play 2. Okay, so go back to the index finger. So you have 3 E and Okay, let's try that. 2 E and 3 E and Okay, to finish up, eighth notes, we have 4 and. So we just have 5, 2. All right, so the second half we had 3 E and 4 and. All right, let's see if we can try the second half. 2 E and 3 E and 4 and. Nice. And if we connect the entire thing, 3 E and 4 E and Good. So start nice and slow, get that down. If you can play the single note melody, it's going to make it so much easier when we fill in with this chord. So take a look at this chord. It's a D major chord. So to do this, we're just going to lay flat on the 2nd fret, strings 1, 2, and 3. Add your pinky to 5 on string 1. And we're playing from 3 down, so ignoring string 4. Now here's the thing. Start with your pinky up. So we're not going to add it to that 5th fret of string 1 just yet. We will in a second. But here's what I want you to do. Keep this bar intact across all 3 strings, and I want you to pluck 3 and 2 and hammer onto 5. Okay? Remember the next melody notes is 2, 5 on string 1. Okay? So that gives us 1 E and hold into beat 2. Then we're going to play 5 on string 1, come down with the slap, and pluck the chord. Okay? So I have 1 E and 2. E and Let's try just that. That's the first half. 3 E and 4 E and Nice. As we go into the second half, keep this all held down. Remember, you tie into beat 3, so we're playing on the E. So we're going to play string 1 by itself. Come down with a slap, lift that pinky up, pluck just the bar, which is 2, 2, 2. And then here's what I want you to do. Put the pinky back down, do a strum down, lift the pinky up, play just the first string. Okay? So for the second half, remember we start on E for beat 3. We had 3 E and 4 and. If I call out those hits, I have 5, slap, pluck, strum, 2 on string 1. All right, let's try that starting on E. 2 E and 3. Awesome. If we backtrack the entire thing, 3 E and 4 E and Okay, so really, really tricky stuff. If we speed it up a little bit, we have 3 E and 4 E and We start to hear a little bit more of the music happening. But again, this is stuff that you just want to practice, and getting those rhythms. That's what makes this hard, is that it's a really syncopated piece of music to play. But here's the beauty. If you've got that down, if we look at measure 4, it's essentially almost the same thing, just a slight little variation. So first thing, memorize that. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. If you can sing it, you can play it. So the 4th bar starts the same, where we're barring, hammer on to 5 on string 2. So you have that double stop, hammer, and then string 1, 2, 5, hold into beat 2, play string 1, slap, then pluck, 2, 2, 2. So there's the difference. We're going to pluck just the bar and then come down. And we can do a strum for beat 3. So you have 1 E and 2 E and 3. Okay, let's see if we can try that. 3 E and 4 E and Let's backtrack. Let's try 3 to 4. 3 E and 4 E and 2, 3, done. Okay, and I shouldn't count 2, 3, 4 and 4 and at the end, but I think you guys get it. So tricky stuff, right? This whole first part, I think, is one of the hardest parts of the tune. just because we've got that funk strum rhythm in the first couple bars, then we go into traditional finger picking type of playing, and it's a really tricky transition, I would say. So once you get measures 1 and 2 down, once you get 3 and 4 down, that's when you want to go back and you want to connect and play 1 through 4. And it just takes time. I think we won't do it in this video because I think it takes a lot of time. That was a part that I had to practice a lot. But once you do get it down, let's take a listen to how it sounds. And I'm going to put a clip of Evan playing because it's fun to watch him play. But you'll hear it at full speed, which is crazy fast. So here's what 1 through 4 sounds like. All right, so as we go into measure 5 and 6, it actually gets a lot easier to play. It's like a breath of fresh air. So here's what 5 sounds like. So again, very catchy. Da, da, da. Right, so you just want to sing and memorize that. Da 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 ba da 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 ba da da. It's just super catchy stuff, very melodic as we cycle through quite a few chords. So let's go ahead and kick off with the first chord, which is a different variation on a D. So to make this chord, it's actually 2 fingers, my bad. We're going to take the middle and the ring finger, place the middle on 2nd fret on string 3, ring is underneath it. So I want you to pluck those 2 notes, and then I want you to take the pinky, put it on 3 on string 2. And here's the kicker. If you look at the rhythm up there, you can see that lasts longer. You have 1 E end, so it lasts for E and N, so technically an 8th note. Okay? At the next point, you're going to play the open A. But again, that lingering 1 E and that's the key. You want to let that 2nd note ring longer, because if you look at the rest of the rhythm, it's all 16th notes until the very last one. All right, so that's the kicker right there. Okay, so again, let's backtrack, make the D chord. We have 1 E, all right, going into A major, it's our stock A major chord, but we don't even need this top string, so just use the index finger, and we're going to go 3, 2, 1, 3, all 16th notes. So if we tie that together, sounds like that. Let's give it a shot. 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and Okay, pretty simple stuff. Going into the next half. So we're going to B minor, and to do this, we can actually use those same 2 fingers we did for the D, just add your pinky underneath it, and you have 2, 2, 2, okay? So for this one, same pattern as the A, 3, 2, 1, 3, and all 16th notes. Then we go back to D with the pinky up, and we have 3, 2, 1, and the last one lasts a 8th note. So for the second half, 3 E and 4 E and. Okay, let's see if we can try just that second half. 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and. Nice. Now if we backtrack, let's try the entire measure. 3 E and 4 E and. Nice. So super easy compared to the other stuff. Going on to measure 6, sounds like this. Okay, let's break down what's happening here. So first off, we can see it starts with a chord we all love, G chord. Difference is we're doing it as a partial bar, so lay flat across strings 1, 2, and 3 on that 2nd fret, and you know where to place the middle. Now we're doing this because you can see that the next chords that we walk up to takes us back to that D that we played earlier, and then we're going to introduce an E minor 7 as well. But before we get there, let's start with just beat 1, which plays out of the G. So make this partial bar, and I want you to strum, or if you want, you can pluck, but I think I'd go with a strum. Then take your ring, put it on 4 on string 1, come down with the slap after that, and play 5 on string 1. So the melody's just walking up on that A string, right? So you have strum 4, slap 5. You can see rhythm, straight up 16th, 1 E and okay? At this point, lift up those other fingers so it goes back to just the stock D. And we have that same picking pattern we saw in the previous measure. 3, 2, 1, 3. Okay? So let's see if we can try beat 1 to 2. So we have 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and Okay? Going into the second half, keep these fingers there. Add your ring to 4 on string 3, middle to 3 on string 2. Becomes an E minor 7. So for this one, we're going to go 3, 2, 1. Okay? So that's 3 E and. Then I want you to lift up all of this right here, this second, third, and fourth. Move the index finger up to the 4th fret of string 3 and make that G chord shape. When we do it from this position, we're playing an A chord. Okay? So we can pluck or we can strum this last hit. Does not matter too much. If you're playing fast, you probably want to strum it. So again, if we look at just the second half, we went from E minor 7, 3 E and 4. Okay, and we have a quarter note for the last hit. So let's see if we can try that entire measure. 3 E and 4 E and Good. So this stuff, a lot easier, right? Let's backtrack. Let's try 5 into 6. 3 E and 4 E and Nice. So moving on, the last 2 measures for this intro, 7 and 8, they are going to go back to a little bit of syncopation, not as hard as what we saw before, but here's what it sounds like. And I lied, I played only 7. Let's tackle just that. That's a big chunk for right now. So with 7, we're cycling through 4 chords again. We're starting with that B minor. Now we made it like this before, but if you want, you could also start it off with just a partial bar if that's easier for you. I'll leave it up to you to choose. But we're going to start with a strum down for that hit. Then we're going to do 2 muted strums. So rhythmically we have 1 and So pretty simple for that. Switching to a D major 7. Might be a chord we've done before. This is going to be middle on 4th string, 2nd fret. Index is 1st fret of string 3. And your ring finger is 2nd fret of string 2. So for this one, we can try to target our hit to be 4 to 2. Okay? If you hit the open A, it's fine, not a big deal, but try to target your hit to hit 4, 3, and 2 when you strum down. Okay? Same rhythm though. We have 2 and So we're gonna go 1, mute, mute, strum, mute, mute, right? So strum, mute, mute, strum, mute, mute. Let's give that a shot. 4 E and 1 and 2 and Okay? So not too hard right there. Going on to our third beat, we're going to take this D major 7, lift up the middle finger, we don't need it. We can take 1st and 3rd and slide it up a half step. Gives us the top half of a G chord, right? So for this one, we're just going to target our hit to be strings 3 and 2. Again, if you hit that open G, it's fine, not a big deal. So for this one, it gets a little tricky. Let me play just this beat 3. So what's happening here is that we're going to hit the G5, we're going to come down with the slap and pluck this D5. So the D5 is just the top 2 strings, 2nd fret. Okay? Now, the thing that's hard is that it's 3 and so it's a quick hit of the pluck. So 3 E and right? So 3 and So after we come down with the slap, we have to literally immediately pluck the D5. Okay? Now, you're going to rest on B4, and you're going to pluck the D5 again on E, and then come down with 2 muted strums to finish up the measure. So to put it into context, I have 3 and E and Okay, let's see if we can try that one together. 2 E and 3 and E and Okay, if we backtrack, I think it makes more sense hearing it in the entire measure. 3 E and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and E and Okay, now if that's hard approaching it from a rhythmic point of view, you can always do from the ear. It's so catchy. Right, it's very, very catchy. If you can sing it, you can play it. So just hit pause, work on that. It's a little bit tricky. All right, so let's take a look at our 8th measure, and it's actually just a continuation of that same feel and vibe that we did for the 7th measure. The only difference here is that we have to cycle through 2 chords only. Stock A, that we all know and love, and the stock D, that, again, we all know and love. So start with the A, and we're going to start with a targeted strum of 4 to 2. So try to hit only 4 to 2, follow it up with 2 muted strums, 1 and Then we want to strum again, but this time 4 to 1, and we're going to come down with the slap and then switch to the D and pluck string 4, 3, and 2 only. So I have 1 and 2 and and you can hear it's that fast and right? So immediately after you come down with that slap, pluck the chord. Let's give it a shot. 4 E and 1 and 2 and Nice. Now going into the second half, we're staying on the D chord, and we're going to pluck again, but not on beat 3, on the E of beat 3. So we're going to pluck that same 4, 3, and 2. Then we're going to do 2 muted strums followed by 2 actual strums of the D chord. Okay? So if we look at just the second half, we start on E. We have 2 E and 3 E and 4 E. Okay? So again, pluck, mute, mute, strum, strum. Okay? Let's try just the second half. 2 E and 3 E and 4 E. Backtrack, entire measure. And again, you can sing it da da ba ba da da. Right? Sing it to get it down. Here we go. 3 E and 4 E and Okay, so a bit tricky, right? This whole song, a little bit tricky with some of those syncopated rhythms that we're playing. If we backtrack, we try 7 into 8. We've got 3 E and 4 E and Cool. So, and at this point, I would go back and I would do the same thing that we did with the first 4 bars, which is to play the second half of this intro as a complete whole. So that means we're going to play through measure 5 through 8. So I'm just going to cycle through it for you guys so you can hear what it sounds like as a complete piece. So that gives us a good gist of what everything sounds like for 5 through 8. And that'll give us the entirety of our intro. So the intro is really, really tricky. I think it's probably the hardest part of this arrangement. But as we jump into measure 9, this is going to start off our verse. So this is where the vocal comes in. And the good thing about it is that the first 2 bars, I think you'll recognize. So the first 2 bars are identical to measure 1 and 2 of the tune. So we'll skip over that. Let's look at measure 11. So measure 11 sounds like this. Okay, so it's a cool little continuation of that double stop. Okay, let's break down what's happening right here. So we're starting off with B minor. We know this chord shape already. So 7 and 5 with the ring and index. We're going to start with a strum down, then do 2 muted strums. Then we have a new chord shape. To make this new one, we're going to take the index, put it on 2 on string 2, and pinky goes on 5 on string 1. So again, strum down, and 2 muted hits. So 1 and 2 and Okay, let's try that. 4 E and 1 and 2 and Good. Now keep this D intact. Move the index up to the 3rd fret of string number 2. And this is a chord shape we've done before, this G5. But the difference here is that we are using the pinky finger instead of the ring because our pinky was already on the 5th fret. Plus, we're going to need it for the next chord, which is just an octave of the D. But before we get there, let's continue. So we have 1 and 4. So for this one, we're on beat 3. We're going to strum. And then we're going to do a slap and move the index finger to that 2nd fret of string 3. That gives us the lower D and the higher D. And I want you to pluck. Okay? So for beat 3, we have strum, slap, pluck. And remember, it's that quick and 3 and Okay, so it's that quick slap, pluck immediately after. Okay? Now, if we continue and look at the second half of it, we have another pluck, which is going to be the same octave, and then we're going to follow it up with 2 muted strums. So E and Okay? So let's tackle just the second half by itself, because that's the tricky thing that's happening. So remember, you start with the G5, 1 and pinky, 3 and E and That's what it sounds like together. So I have strum, slap, pluck, pluck, strum, strum, but 2 mutes, right? Okay, so let's try it together. 2 E and 3 and E and Good. Now if we put it together, we start to hear the music. 3 E and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and E and Nice. One time without me counting. 3 and 4 E and Good. So that one I don't think is super duper hard, but let's move on to measure number 12, which is going to be ending one for this 4-bar section for the verse. Sounds like this. Okay, so 2 chords. We're back to the A, which is the same G chord shape, and back to that D with the pinky on 5 that we played quite a few times already. So make the A chord, and I want you to strum on beat 1, do 2 muted strums after, and then strum again, and come down with the slap, and switch to the D, and pluck. So 1 and 2 and So that quick slap, okay? Let's give that a shot. 3 E and 4 E and 1 and 2 and Good. Now, going into the second half, we're staying on this D chord. Now, our first hit's going to be on the E, not on beat 3, but on the E. And we're going to start with hitting just the first string, then we're going to do 2 muted strums, followed by 2 strums. Okay? Rhythmically, we have E and 4 E. Okay? So continue that 8th note. E and 4 E. Alright? So let's see if we can try that together. 2 E and 3 E and 4 E. Good. Now if we connect it together, I think again it makes more sense in the context. 3 E and 4 E and Good. So here's the thing. Once you get that down, you're going to backtrack and you're going to play 9, 10, 11, and then jump into measure 13, which is ending number 2. But before we get there, let's just try 11 into 12, and then we'll try 9 through 12, okay? So here's 11 into 12. 3 E and 4 E and Good. And if we try 9 through 12, we get 3 E and 4 E and Awesome. So now at this point, you're going to go ahead and backtrack. You're going to play 9, 10, 11, and then you're going to jump into our alternate ending number 2. So this is measure 13, and it's almost 100% identical to measure 12. The only difference is you end on beat number 4. So it sounds like this. Okay, so very simple. You're doing everything the same, A to D, but you're just ending on beat 4. So 1 strum instead of 2 strums on that last hit. So very simple. I think we can skip over that, and let's take a look at our chorus. Now our chorus is a really fun melodic part to play. So here's what the first measure sounds like. Okay, so let's go ahead and break down that. So it's going to start with a higher voicing of a D chord, but as you can see, it's the same G chord shape. So just make that shape and start it on 9, 10, and 9. Now, I'm playing on a concert size ukulele, so I'm going to use these 3 fingers. If you're playing on a tenor, you can probably do it as a partial bar, and then for the second note, you can kind of pivot down to grab that 10th fret. But if you're playing on a smaller size like me, I find it more comfortable to do these fingers because it's kind of hard to fit everything in these tiny frets. But for the first hit, what we're going to do is we're going to strum the chord, then take the pinky, put it on 10 on string 1, then come down with a slap and move that pinky up to 12. Okay? So check this out. I have 1 E and A. When I move up to 12, I'm going to go ahead and get in position for the next chord, which is an A. So you can see for this A, I'm going to lay flat as a partial bar on the 9th fret, strings 1, 2, and 3. Keep my pinky on that 12th fret. Okay, so 1 E and A. And when I get up to that 12th fret, I'm already in position for the second chord. So playing out of this second chord, we're literally just going to go 3, 2, 1, 3. So we've seen that picking pattern a few times, right? Now continuing on, we're going to add these 2 fingers, and you probably know where they're going to go. It's going to go 11 and 10 on the 3rd and 2nd string. Becomes a B minor 7. And we have that same picking pattern, 3, 2, 1, 3. Then get rid of those 2 fingers, back to the A, 3, 2, 1. So what do you notice? It's almost the same as, right? It's almost the same as that, except instead of moving up for a higher voicing chord, we're just going back. So kicking off this entire 14th measure, we had D, 10, slap, 12, takes us to the A chord, 3, 2, 1, 3, put the 2 fingers down, make it B minor 7, 3, 2, 1, 3, lift them up, back to A for 3, 2, 1. All right, let's see if we can try that one together. Pretty simple. 3 E and A, 4 E and A. Nice. Now here's the beauty. As we go to the next measure, lift the pinky up. We're going to slide this bar, which is on 9, down to 2, put the middle down, you're back to G, and here's what the next measure sounds like. It's the exact same measure that we played earlier, which I believe is measure 6. So identical. So let's see if we can try 14 into 15. So 3 E and A, 4 E and A. Nice. Going into 16, we have quarter note hits. Sounds like this. Okay, so just 4 chords that we're cycling through. Make that D that we did earlier, which was flat with the pinky on 5, and we're just going to add our ring to 4 on string 4. Okay, so this gives us a B minor. Now if you think this is really hard, then you can just omit string 4. It's not going to have as much of that sad minor sound. You can strum from 3 down. It'll work just fine. So not a huge difference. But the next chord is the G chord shape. We're just up a whole step, so we've done this one a lot. It's the A chord. Then we're actually going to move it down a whole step. Use those same 3 fingers, make it a regular G, and then we're going to basic D. So really simple other than this first hit. So we have 1, 2, 3, Now the thing that you want to remember is it's quarter note hits, so don't rush these strums, right? You want to keep the timing going. So to give you an example, that's a good amount of speed. If you watch Evan's performance, you can see too he does an accented strum, I think on the first and the third one. So you can do like a little raschiato barrel roll strum for maybe the first hit, regular strum for the second. You can do the same thing for the third hit, and then a regular strum for the fourth hit. So if you want to learn how to do that really cool technique, check out, I'll put a link below to a lesson that Matt taught, which is, he's really great at that technique. So if you want to learn the raschiato strum, pretty cool stuff. Okay, so going on to the next measure, 17 sounds like this. Okay, so literally this kind of measures right here where we're just vamping between these two chords, they're kind of like filler stuff. You have to remember that your part in the music is to back up the singer, right? To provide the harmony that they're singing over. So when I'm teaching you stuff like this measure here coming up 17, it really doesn't matter if you play it 100% exactly like I'm showing you. As long as you have the two chords in their correct spots in the measure, you're good to go with whatever you play. I mean, you can even do really simple stuff, get rid of some of the muted strums, just make it easier to play. So just want to throw that out. But let's go ahead and learn as it's notated. So kicking off, we start with the A major chord. We have strum, mute, mute, and then we're going to do another strum, come down with a slap, and pluck the full D major. 1 and 2 and Okay, so very, very simple. Let's look at the second half. We're going to start again with a pluck, and then 2 muted strums, and then a strum on beat 4. So we have E and 4. Okay, let's see if we can try that. 2 E and 3 E and 4. Okay, putting it together. 1 and 2 and E and 4. All right, let's you and I try. 3 E and 4 E and 1 and 2 and E and 4. Nice. So at this point, we're kind of done with the first chunk of that chorus. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and just cycle throughout all those 4 bars, 14, 15, 16, and 17, to get a gist of what it sounds like. Now here's the beauty, is that if you want to make this easier to play, because these next 4 measures, they're essentially the same thing, at least the first 3. You can literally play 14, 15, and 16 again to a T. So if you don't want to do what happens next, which is just minor variations, you can just play 14, 15, and 16 to a T, and then join us for the last measure, which is 21. But if you want to learn the variations, which are pretty cool, let's continue on. So we're looking at measure number 18 right now, and it sounds like this. Alright, so that's what this measure sounds like. Now the first half is actually identical. So we have D to A. So that's identical to what we did for 14 for beats 1 and 2. So the new stuff, the variations, they start on beat 3. So make the B minor 7, and I want you to strum that chord, and then I want you to quickly move down to the D, which was 2 and 5. When you move down here, you're going to pluck string 3, and then 1 and 2. Okay? Now rhythmically, here's what's happening. We have a strum for the B minor 7 on 3. When we move down, and that's what we have. Putting it into the context makes a little bit more sense. 1 E and 2 E and 3 and Okay? At this point, you're going to come down with a slap on beat 4 and get rid of the pinky, put your ring finger on the 4th fret of string 1, pluck 1 and 2, and then pluck string 3 by itself. So you have 4 E and. but you've got to change to that ring finger, okay? So again, if we start just on beat 3, because that's where our new stuff happens, we have a strum of the B minor, move quickly down to the D, pluck 3, pluck 1 and 2, come down with a slap, get rid of the pinky, put your ring on 4 on string 1, pluck 1 and 2, then pluck 3. Okay? So the new stuff, we have 3 and a 4 E and. Alright? So hit pause, work on that. That's a hard little transition. But if we got it, let's try together. 2 E and 3 and 4 E and. In the context of the entire measure, 3 E and 4 E and. Nice. So again, really, really tricky thing. If you want to make it easier, just play 14 to a T. But let's continue on. Here's our next little change that Evan does. So for measure 19, it's going to sound like this. So we've got some strumming happening right here. It's kind of cool. So it goes back to the G. So go ahead and do the partial bar. You're going to go strum, then 4, slap, 5. That's identical to what we've done before. So nothing happens new on beat 1. But when you get to here, remember beat 2 plays the D chord. So keep that D chord intact, and I want you to go down, up, mute, up. So just chord, chord, mute, chord. Okay? So 2 E and A. Let's try beat 1 into 2. 3 E and A, 4 E and A. Good. On beat 3, make the E minor 7, strum, mute, mute, go to A, strum, slap. Okay, so very simple to end it. 3 and 4 and. All right, then entire measure together. 3 E and 4 E and Nice. So not super duper hard, but a cool little transition. Now let's backtrack. Let's try those 2 bars together because those were our variations. Sounds like this: 3 E and 4 E and. Cool. When he goes into 20, it's identical to what we did for the quarter note hits, so that previous bar. Okay, and that was measure number 16. So nothing new happens there. And in our final measure, we have a little change. So really cliche kind of ending, but it sounds cool. So it starts with the A, so we're going to go strum, mute, mute, strum, slap, pluck. And you pluck 3 and 2 only. So let's try that. 3 E and 4 E and 1 and 2 and Good. Now we're going to rest for beat 3. On the E, we're going to play string 4 and then pluck 3 and 2. But this time you need to take that pinky and move it up to the 3rd fret of string 2. Okay, so I have 2, 2, 3. All right, so I'm plucking string 4, moving my pinky up to the 3rd fret, plucking, and then I'm going to move it back, and I'm going to pluck 3 and 2 again on beat 4. So a little tricky as the rhythm is because we have 3 E and 4. Okay, so we have pluck, move up, move back. Okay, let's see if we can try just that second half. 2 E and 3 E and 4. Okay, entire measure. 3 E and 4 E and 1 and 2 and E and 4. All right, so that will complete everything. If we backtrack, let's see if we can try those last 4 bars together. So this would be measure 18, 19, 20, and 21. But that's everything, guys. So that is the entire first tune. And I can't stress it enough or state it enough that the first song is very, very challenging to play. The other three songs are so much easier. It's like a walk in the park compared to this first one. So if you're struggling a little bit with this, don't feel bad. I spent a lot of days learning how to play this, and this is actually my second take for the lesson because I thought I could do it better too, you know? I still have to practice a ton for everything that I do, not just for learning these songs and performing them, but also for teaching the lessons. So, you know, don't ever get frustrated or upset that something takes a long time. It does for pretty much everybody. You've got to put in the time, but if you put in the time, it's so worth it because this is a really cool sounding piece to play, and it's a great one for really leveling up. It's a good challenge, especially from a rhythmic perspective. So guys, I want to give you a friendly reminder that if you did want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, not for only this song, but for the other three as well, that's going to be available at this link. Also at that link would be the part 2 lesson. So if you want to learn the other songs, you can jump into that lesson as well. You can also find this song by going to the site rockclass101.com, doing a search for Motown medley. Also on that page was the really cool interactive on-screen tab player, so you can hit play, you can highlight bars, loop sections, slow it down. Just really, really awesome tool, especially for a hard one like this first song. And last but not least, we have the backing tracks. So once you learn it, you can download those backing tracks. We're gonna have 100%, 75, and 50% speed, so you can rock out with the band at home. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I'll see you in the part 2. The next 3 songs are super fun to play, much easier than this one, so I'll see you in that lesson. Take care.